Now for something completely different. Don Harron. We never actually got it made, but Don and I once planned to do a feature film. We only got as far as the title.
You didn't want it good, you wanted it Thursday.
It was to be called Charlie Pulls It Off.
Thank you, Moses. You led us to the desert, I appreciate that. Hope you don't mind me sitting. I know you're all sitting, and I need to, because I'm still suffering from jet lag. I came back from Japan 2 weeks ago, but it's a 14-hour flight, Toronto, nonstop to Tokyo, the same on the way back. And they say that every hour of jet lag is a day to recover. So I'm just over it a couple of days ago. And I feel a little shaky. I went to see the Japanese version of Anne of Green Gables. It's called Akage no Anne, red-haired Anne. And they've been doing it in Japan since 1976. I was busy with a radio show called Morningside in 1976, so I never got there. But again and again, they keep doing it. And in about 1999, we were invited, first class, Norman Campbell, my composer, Elaine Campbell, my co-lyricist, and I were invited to go there. I had to cancel the morning of the flight. I was in the emergency hospital in Mount Sinai with cellulitis. It's not what happens to a lady's bum when she gets older. It's blood clots in your bloodstream. I mean, yeah, it is very serious. I had to stay there, and they filled me full of penicillin. Norman and Elaine went to Tokyo to see the show, and so my one and only chance was 3 weeks ago. And I went. I went economy class, which is tougher, and because you don't get to lie down. And because of my cellulitis, I made sure I drank a lot of water, and I walked up and down the length of the plane every half hour or so. Nobody else was doing this that I know of. But anyway, I did. And I arrived in Tokyo fairly conscious. The airport in Tokyo is 2.5 hours from downtown Tokyo. I arrived there about 6 in the evening, which is Japanese rush hour, as it is with us. And it was like the 400 highway on Thanksgiving weekend, bumper to bumper for 2.5 hours. And it's not the countryside in Narita, it's skyscrapers, and they never stop. It makes New York look like a village. I didn't realize when I got there that metropolitan Tokyo, including the suburbs, is the home to 38 million people. That's more than there are in this country. I got there to the hotel and fell asleep with great difficulty because of jet lag. You get up at 2 in the morning and you're wide awake. But Tokyo, I was there 40 years ago, 1970, the World's Fair in Osaka. We brought the Charlottetown Company to Japan to celebrate that World's Fair. We had a flight to Vancouver, stayed overnight in a hotel, then on to Tokyo, and we had 2 days in Tokyo, and then we took that 300-mile-an-hour train to Osaka, so that Fujiyama goes by, that was it. Barbara Hamilton wanted to see the Takaraska. Did you remember that movie that Marlon Brando did called Sayonara, in which he fell in love with the leading lady of a Japanese all-girl company? That's the Takaraska. She wanted to see it. I said, fine, I'll come with you. In those days, 40 years ago, Tokyo was much smaller, and there were no numbers on any buildings in any of the streets. Now, Barbara Hamilton decided to tell the taxi driver where to go because she knew two words in Japanese, left and right, wacky and Mickey. So we wackied and Mickeyed our way all the down. It took us 2 hours. We saw about half the show. I thought of going to see Takarazuka again this year, but they're in Osaka. Tokyo is, as you know, full of the oldest people on earth. They have been in either a recessive depression or a depressive recession since 1990. And it's still going on. We just inherited it in 2009. But I saw no evidence of it. I took a taxi to my agent, who is Martin Naylor, an Englishman who's been living in Tokyo for years, had just come back from Beijing, where he told me he had a meal for $2. Very good working class meal. He took me to dinner in Tokyo. The bill for me alone was $100. Taking the taxi from his office back to my hotel, 10 minutes, was $20. But they're supposed to be in the midst of not inflation, but deflation. All the prices are lower, and nobody's buying anything. The consumers are not consuming. I saw no evidence of this. I saw a great, vast horde of people, and all the signs are now in English. There were none in 1970. There's a Starbucks on every corner. I saw a Hooters. I didn't think Japanese women were built that way. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, which is in Toronto at University and Richmond. But I don't know where the old people are. I saw young people, and not the kind of short, stunted Japanese. I saw tall Japanese, both male and female, terribly well dressed. The hotel I lived in was a residence in itself that had everything, absolutely everything. A beautiful garden and a large pond, and they have goldfish there. The goldfish starts out this big, and they feed it every day, and it becomes a 6-foot carp. We have to change the title of this organization. Because in Ontario, the carp is considered something that is ruining the Great Lakes. I fed them. They're lovely. You know. But anyway, I finally got to see Akagi no An, produced by Shiki Productions. Shiki is Japanese for the 4 seasons. And it's well named because Shiki goes all year round with 10 productions. The girl playing Anne of Green Gables also plays Maria in The Sound of Music. The girl who used to be Anne was married to the theater director, Keita Asari. But she is now 52 years old, so she's playing Evita. Don't Cry for Me, Yokohama. So I see Anne of Green Gables. They use there's no orchestra. They use the soundtrack of our record. How they remove the English lyrics, I will never know. But it's a very good soundtrack. And the ladies come out, if you've ever seen Anne of Green Gables, the ladies of the community talk about we are great workers for the cause because they're packing undies for the people overseas. And instead of the 60-year-olds we have in Charlottetown, they have 30-year-olds, and their choreography is dazzling. The whole emphasis is on youth in the Japanese production of Anne. The kids at the school are kids. In Charlottetown, they have to be in the other 2 shows, Hairspray and whatever rock show is on. So the kids are like 28 to 30. It's okay, they're fine, they do it. But to see it with children was a thrilling thing. Now, I don't know Japanese. So I'm listening to the thing. And, Ohio, Diana. It doesn't mean she comes from a part of the United States. That's the Japanese for hello, good morning. And Matachato Rata Marura. Wasamuta Gilbert Bryce. Fascinating. Fast. The audience consists of a lot of, not many kids, mostly older people, because as you say, no, we are loaded with them in Japan. And also a boys' school, not a girls' school. When we had it at the Elgin last year, BSS came and Havelgal came, and but no, this was a boys' school. I was in the washroom with them before the show, and they were a boisterous 14 to 15-year-olds. They're going to be trouble. Good as gold. Sat quietly. Nobody applauds much in Japan. The first applause we got was in the first act, halfway through, when Anne sang the apology to Mrs. Lind. Mrs. Lind, I am so chagrined, I acted so undisciplined, excuse me, I'm out of wind, but I don't know what it is in Japanese. I do know that when Anne and Diana pledged their friendship together in kindred spirits, they sing to each other, Suri Natawa. So I guess Harper must have been very pleased about that. And the show, I at the end of the show, I was brought on stage. The audience was gone to speak to the cast, and I had a speech in Japanese, written for me and coached by Sid Edelman's wife, his widow now. We lost Sid 2 years ago, Toshiko. And she wrote, and she coached me, and I told them how wonderful they were, and it was great. And the Matthew was his swan song. He had played Hamlet, he played all the other roles, but he loved playing Matthew, but he was quitting at the age of 79. Now, I'm 86. One more year, according to Eric Peterson, and I'm gone. I said, you're 79, you're a kid. What are you quitting for? And he laughed. Maybe I talked him out of it, I hope so. The next day, I was taken to the Shiki conglomerate of buildings somewhere in Tokyo to be interviewed by the press. And the press was fascinated because Anne of Green Gables has been a big hit in Japan since before the war. Somebody in 1938 translated Lucy Maud Montgomery's book into Japanese. And it went into the school curriculum. So that even Pearl Harbor and Hiroshima and Nagasaki did not dampen the Japanese enthusiasm for this book. They think of it as their own. Partly because it became a feminist statement. Anne of Green Gables takes no crap from the boys. She takes her slate and she bongs it over Gilbert Blythe's head. And the Japanese women loved that because they were so used to their husband hanging in after his office was over at the bars with the little girls, the hostesses, until 8:30 and getting home at 9 for his late supper. This doesn't happen anymore, partly because of deflation and partly because I think of Anne, that the Japanese girls don't take the crap anymore that they took from their husbands and get them there on time. They used to bring them to Charlottetown, and that's because the economy is not what it used to be. That's stopped. Now we're getting South Koreans, not North Koreans. I don't think the message has gotten through to that little fat boy that's just taken over Kim Dim's son. But in those days, they would come and get remarried at the Anne of Green Gables Museum by the Lake of Shining Waters. And the Chinese are starting to get interested. A delegation came 2 years ago. They wanted to take the Charlottetown Company and do as they did in Japan in 1970 and play 5 or 6 different cities. But it hasn't happened yet. But I'm a little old, yes. I think that, and it's going to go on. I mean, it's been running since the 1st of September. It ends next week. But it's a permanent part of this repertory company that does The Lion King and everything else, Mary Poppins. The thing that stunned me about Japan is that they don't have any immigration. Never have. So that the older population doesn't get anybody to replace them and pay use their pensions. They're in great danger of getting wiped out. Immigration has saved us older people, because they're working, taking jobs. I mean, I'm still working. I'm insane. People in France are rioting because they don't want to retire at 62. They want to retire at 60. What am I doing? Anyway, Anne of Green Gables was an immigrant. She came from a distant country called Nova Scotia across a body of water to Prince Edward Island. The islanders are still the same way. I've been there for 46 years. That's how long Anne has been running in Charlottetown. I'm still a stranger from away. A woman, evidently, went to New Brunswick to shop on the ferry boat. Her water broke in the middle of the shop. She delivered her baby back in the back part of the shop, and she took it home. And it was ever after considered that the baby was not an islander, it was from away. A friend of mine, went to a funeral in Surrey of a man who came from Holland at the age of 2 and lived here until he was 91. And he swears that 2 people at that ceremony said to each other, "It's a pity they didn't send him home to be buried." Immigration. As I said, I'm 86. When I was 70, I had breakfast with Robertson Davies, the great wit and drama critic and dramatist. And I said, "Rob, what is the difference between 70 and 80? And he said, "Frequent urination and inability to remember names." Oh my God, do I have that now? Next week I went to Nashville for a reunion of Hee Haw, my educational series on television. And the New York Times said it was the only summer replacement that deserved a summer replacement. Am I out of time? Oh, Moses, I'm so sorry. I should have watched that. Anyway, Roy Acuff was 85, and I said, and I missed his birthday by one day. And I said, "Roy, what did you do on your birthday?" He said, "Sat on the toilet trying to remember names." I'm out of time. I've got a book, my 14th book, Charlie Farquharson's Views and Muse About Your News, has everything in it. And also my Old Testament, which is the most popular book I ever wrote. And I'll be at the bookstore desecrating things and misspelling your name. Moses, I'm so sorry. Come on.
It's fine, it's fine. Charlie, if you want to take another minute or two, you got another story for us. You got a Charlie story for us.
A Charlie story?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because in this book, I cover everything. I do the 50s and the 60s because the 50s, we had an even bigger deficit than we have now,
Right.
and conquered it with jobs, which didn't have during the war, except the women had all the jobs. And I do the 60s, when we got our rocks off of the moon, you know. And then I go to your OOs, Century 21. And most of the book is about what happened to the banks. There's 8 chapters on Haiti. There's chapters on G8 and G20. You know, it was supposed to be G8, but the leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, didn't come. So it was the group of 7 trying to figure out the finances of the world. And Charlie says, what in the Sam Hill did the group of 7 know about the world finances? They're a bunch of painters from Northern Ontario. Tom Thompson, Jack Jackson, John Johnson, Jim Jimson, Sven Svensson, and I don't know who.
That's great. This way, Don. This way. Oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.